Welcome to the AI Brief from the YPO Technology Network. I'm Stephen Forte. A quick programming note before we get into today's episode. As many of you know, along with my colleague Ryan Collins, I co-champion the YPO MIT Deep Tech Bootcamp, a week we spend together at MIT going deep on AI technology and how to actually deploy it inside the enterprise. It is one of the most intensive learning weeks YPO offers, and a lot of what shapes my thinking on this show comes out of those modules. Next week is the boot camp, so the podcast schedule may be lighter than usual. Do not be surprised if I miss an episode or two. It is a pretty intense week, but expect a few episodes inspired by the course material. Some of the frameworks Ryan and I have built for the workshops applied to what is happening in the market right now. With that out of the way, today's episode. So, 2 days ago on this show, episode 73, The Labs Disagree, I argued that the semantic layer inside your data stack was becoming the new toll gate for AI agents. Quick definition before we go further, because we are going to come back to this idea. A semantic layer is the part of your data infrastructure where the meaning of each business term gets defined and standardized. Revenue, is that gross or net? Does it include refunds? Does it include deferred revenue? Customer, is that an account, a person, a contract? Different teams will give you different answers if there is no shared definition. The semantic layer is where those definitions live as code, so that every system, every dashboard, and now every AI agent returns the same number when asked the same question. It is the most underappreciated piece of enterprise data infrastructure in your stack, and it is becoming the place where AI agents either get grounded or hallucinate, depending on whether you have built one. 48 hours after Thursday's episode, Snowflake, the cloud data warehouse company most of your enterprise teams already use, bought the toll booth. That is one of three things that happened this week. Each one is the market's answer to a different anxiety that has been sitting under your AI program. Snowflake is the lock-in answer. The second story, Yoshua Bengio, one of the three godfathers of AI demanding accountability, is the safety answer. And the third is a fast-growing AI infrastructure startup that just raised at a $1.3 billion valuation. That one is the escape hatch answer, funded notably by the very data platforms you might be worried about getting locked into. Three stories, one thesis. The agentic enterprise stopped being marketing this week and started producing real artifacts. Let me walk you through them. Start with Snowflake. Quick gloss for anyone not in the data world. Snowflake is the cloud data platform, the place where most large enterprises store and query their structured data, the alternative most of you use to Microsoft's SQL Server or Oracle. Public company, ticker SNOW, roughly $100 billion market cap. Their pitch for the last 2 years has been the AI data cloud, your data, your AI governed. On Tuesday, Snowflake announced it was acquiring a company called Natoma. Natoma builds infrastructure for something called the Model Context Protocol, MCP for short, a standard originally proposed by Anthropic, the AI lab behind Claude, for how AI agents connect to enterprise applications, databases, and tools. Think of it as the universal adapter that lets an AI agent talk to your Salesforce, your Workday, and your custom internal systems. When the protocol first launched, the framing was, this is open, vendor neutral. Every AI lab and enterprise platform could use it. Snowflake just bought the leading enterprise implementation of it. The official framing, and this is the Snowflake press release language, is that they are building a natively integrated governance and identity layer for AI agents and MCP tool access. In English, they want to control how AI agents inside your company connect to your data. And they want to do it from inside their platform, not from a neutral third party. Here is why this matters. The promise of the protocol when Anthropic released it last year was that you could plug any AI agent into any enterprise system through a common standard and walk away if you needed to. That promise just got narrower. Not killed, Snowflake will keep the standard open in public-facing ways, but narrower. If you are a Snowflake customer using their version of the layer, your agent-to-data connections are now governed by Snowflake's terms on Snowflake's timeline with Snowflake's pricing. This is the exact pattern Microsoft used when they blocked Databricks from connecting to Power BI 2 weeks ago. Workday, ServiceNow, and HubSpot are building the same kind of gates. The Snowflake Natoma deal is the same playbook. executed on the agent connection layer instead of the data visualization layer. For your CIO and your CDO, the question this week is, where is your agent connection layer hosted, and what is your exit cost if the host raises the toll? If they cannot answer that, that is the work for the next 30 days. Now, the second story, Yoshua Bengio gave a speech in Singapore last week. Quick gloss. Bengio is one of three scientists collectively known as the godfathers of AI. He won the Turing Award, the highest honor in computer science, in 2018, alongside Geoffrey Hinton and Yann LeCun. He runs Mila, the Quebec AI Institute. When Bengio talks publicly about AI risk, governments take notes. This week, he was unusually specific. He named incidents. He cited PocketOS, a software company whose entire production database and its backups were deleted by a cursor AI coding agent powered by Anthropic's Claude. The agent had been given broad system access and chose on its own to delete the database. He cited Replit, the online development platform, whose AI coding assistant in 2025 wiped a customer database despite being explicitly told to freeze all code changes and then generated fake data to cover up its error. He cited a Northeastern, MIT, Stanford, Harvard, and Carnegie Mellon study in which AI agents, given real email accounts and real system access, reported task complete, while having actually deleted critical systems underneath. The headline number floating around trade press is that there are now roughly 700 documented incidents of unauthorized agent actions, deleted emails, destructive system commands, fake reports. The methodology behind that count is loose, so I would not anchor on the number. But the named incidents are real, and they are recent. Bengio's specific demand, and this is the part that should land for executives, was for digital trails and clear accountability over who controls AI agents that act inside companies, not academic safety frameworks, audit logs, permission gates, two-person approval for irreversible actions. That is the conversation your audit committee should be having about your AI program right now. Not, is the AI accurate enough? That is a 2024 question. The 2026 question is, when the agent does something destructive, who is accountable, what is the audit trail, and how is the action reversed? If your AI program does not have written answers to those three questions, it is not ready to scale. Not because the technology is not ready, but because your accountability framework is not. Third story. This is the one most coverage missed, and the one that ties the first two together. A New York startup called OpenRouter raised $113 million in Series B funding this week at a $1.3 billion valuation. The round was led by Capital G, which is Alphabet's growth fund, Alphabet being Google's parent company. So Google money indirectly, usage grew 5 times in 6 months. What does the company do? It is an abstraction layer, a unified API, application programming interface, that gives developers access to 400 plus AI models through a single connection. Instead of writing your code to talk to OpenAI's API, then again to talk to Anthropic's, then again to talk to Google's Gemini, then again to Mistral, then again to DeepSeek, you write it once to this abstraction layer and the platform handles the rest. You can swap which model you're using with a single line change. Now look at who else invested. The press release lists Snowflake Ventures, Databricks Ventures, MongoDB Ventures, and ServiceNow Ventures. Read that list again. Those are the corporate venture arms of 4 of the biggest enterprise data platforms in the world. The same platforms whose customers are now worried about lock-in, and they are funding the abstraction layer that lets enterprises swap which AI model they use without rewriting their code. That is, let me put this carefully, at minimum, hedge investing. At most, it is those CFOs telling you what they see coming. The data platforms know their customers are going to want optionality on the model side. They are putting money in the company that delivers it. Here is why this story closes the loop with the first two. Snowflake just locked down how your agents connect to data. Bengio is telling you to lock down what your agents are allowed to do. The abstraction layer round, and more importantly, the people writing the checks into it, are telling you to keep your model choice fluid. Together, that is the operator architecture for an agentic enterprise that does not get owned by a single vendor. Lockdown connection, lockdown action, keep model choice open. If your architecture is doing 2 of those 3, you are ahead of most of the market. If it is doing 0, that is your next 90 days. Here is my read. 3 weeks ago, the agentic enterprise was an SAP keynote slide. 2 weeks ago, that was episode 69, the Anthropic's 48 hours. It became a product because KPMG and SAP made it real. This week, it produced its first real artifacts, a lock-in signed at the platform layer, an accountability framework demanded by the scientific establishment, an escape hatch funded by the very platforms that own the lock-in. That is what real enterprise software categories look like when they cross from marketing to operations. It is messy. The defenses against vendor lock-in arrive at the same time as the vendor lock-in. The accountability demands arrive at the same time as the first dramatic failures. The funding for the escape hatch arrives from the people building the lock-in. This is what week 3 of a real enterprise software category looks like. Embrace the mess. It is the sign that the market is functioning, not failing. But if I were in your seat this week, I would do 3 things. First, get your CIO and your CDO together with one question on the agenda. Where is our agent connection layer hosted, and what would it cost us to move it? The answer should be a number, not a paragraph. If the team cannot give you a number, your lock-in exposure is undefined. That is not a good thing. Second, write the agent accountability policy your audit committee is going to ask about in the next quarter. 3 written answers. Who is accountable when an agent does something destructive? What is the audit trail? How is the action reversed? The policy does not need to be perfect. It needs to exist before your board reads a TechCrunch story about an agent that deleted somebody's production database. Third, put a line item in your AI architecture for model abstraction. Not any specific vendor. That is a tactical choice. The principle is that you should be able to swap underlying models inside any AI workflow with a small code change, not a rewrite. If you cannot, you are betting your AI strategy on one model lab being right for the next 3 years. Nobody at the table is willing to make that bet privately. Do not make it publicly in your architecture. One more thing before we close. Look at this week's 3 stories as a single sentence. Snowflake bought the connection layer. Bengio demanded the accountability layer. The data platforms funded the escape layer. The agentic enterprise just produced its architecture in 3 pieces in 48 hours. If your team is still talking about AI in terms of which model to use, they are 1 layer behind the market. The model is now the easy part. Connection, accountability, and abstraction are the hard parts. And the market just told you in receipts what each one is worth. That is the YPO Tech Network AI brief for Friday, May 29th. I am Stephen Forte. If this was useful, send it to a fellow member. I will be back Monday with more. Until then, stay sharp.